Hi everybody, Grandad here again. And what am I up to today? Well, today I'm going to take a look at some of my treasures. Some things I've collected over the years, and I'm very fond of collecting, as you know. Now, nearly all these things I've actually bought, because I can't resist. If I go to a fair or a country place where they sell antiques and that sort of things, I always look through and I find all sorts of things there. And sometimes I just can't resist. My wife's told me that I must stop buying these things because I've just got too many. And in fact, the cupboard is absolutely full. Now, in front of me on the table here, I've got an assortment of things, which I'll try and bring up and show you one at a time. I'll just, I don't know whether I can get a little bit more light on here. I'll just put this other light on, because I thought the light would be good in here. But it's not terribly good. That's not working for some reason. It's not plugged in. Put a little bit more light on the scene, and hopefully that'll bring a bit more light. And I'll put this one on as well. And that's got no, that hasn't got on much more light. But anyway, I'm sorry about that. So I'm hoping it's not too dark for you to see. And it's a little bit disappointing that the sun isn't shining a little bit better. Now, what I want to show you first of all is some things I've got that are Chinese or Japanese or something like that. I don't know, I'm very fond of these sort of things. Now, back in the day, Japanese people, and I think this is a carving here of a Japanese person. I think it's a little fisherman. And it's carved out of wood. It's very pretty. And years ago I had another one my family had, which is much bigger than this, a fisherman. And so I bought this because it reminded me of that one that we had. Now you can see that they all dressed in robes. They didn't have trousers and things like that. And they just tied around their waist with a string. Now when you were, this is a peasant type person, I suppose, and he's a fisherman. He's got his hat there and a few things on his back, so he wasn't particularly up high, but he shows you the sort of thing that they used to wear. Now, what do they used to do? Because they hadn't got pockets, they would have to carry their belongings along in little sort of purses, I suppose you'd call them, or little things they called inrows. Now, I've got an inrow here, and I think this is made of bone, and it's quite an interesting little gadget. And it's got a tassely bottom on it and a bit of string through it. Now it's got a bead here which helps to hold the lid on, and if I pull that bead up, you'll see that the lid of that opens and you've got a little compartment in there. Now it's not very big, you wouldn't be able to put much in it. Now some of these inrows, they actually came apart. This one has got a hinge on it, which makes it a little bit different. And so that hinges over, and you put snuff in there or something in there that you might want to carry along. And then there's another compartment underneath. Now sometimes they say these were in 3s or 4s, but they were for carrying things. And the idea was that you put your stuff inside there, pull that little bead down to lock it a little bit, and then you would hang it from your rope around your waist. And it would just dangle there, and that would be how you carried it along. Now they call these inrows, I believe. And on the top here, they've got a little toggle which you would put underneath the band of the string around your waist. Now they were most beautifully made. I mean, this one's got a couple of little rabbits on it. There's a couple of rabbits frolicking about there, and I hope you can see that. Getting it in the right place on the camera so you can see. There's a couple of little rabbits there, and they've been beautifully carved to decorate this. And they call these netskis. And I love netskis. I bought an awful lot of them, so you'll see a few more. Now this is another inrow. This one's a bit cruder, but it's got a string on it, and it would probably dangle from a purse, or, you know, from the rope again. And inside there you'd put your belongings, whatever it was, your herbs or something that you were carrying along. And so that's another one I bought. It's not exactly a very fancy inrow, but I think that's what it is. And I've got two of those. Now, I showed you the fishermen. Now, another thing that they would have, and this is a deity of some sort. Now, this is an ivory thing, I believe, and there's a lot of controversy about people who collect ivory, but this looks to me like a very old piece of ivory. And there's a musician playing, there's a woman playing, and this is some sort of deity, and she's got a peacock or something around the bottom here of the statue, and she's some sort of deity. But you see, they all wear robes, long robes that didn't have pockets or anything. Now, one of the things that Chinese people used to do for their writing and painting, they used to have paintbrushes. Now, this is a little dipping stick, a little dipping, it's made of some sort of stone, I think. I'm not quite sure what kind of stone it is, but it's got a little well there, and you could put a bit of water in there or some sort of a bit of paint, and you would dip your paintbrush in there to do the Chinese writing. And there's another picture there of another shape of a Chinaman in all his robes. He's probably some sort of deity, I don't know. Now, another thing I like to collect is perfume bottles. Now, this is quite a nice perfume bottle. Unfortunately, I don't know whether I've got the lid for this one, but the lid appears to be missing off this one. And it's really pretty. And it's covered in this, I don't quite know what it's made out of. It's some sort of material. I may remember what they call this. But it's interesting looking material, and it's sort of red colour. And I've got another thing later on, which hopefully I can remember the name of it by then. And I can show you it's a pot made of this interesting sort of red. It's not terracotta and it's not plastic. I'm not quite sure what it is. But I like those sort of things. And there's another one, which is a little carrying along little perfume bottle. And it's got a little screw lid on it and a cork in that one. So you could seal it up and carry it along, and you'd have it on your wrist or on a keychain or something, and that would dangle. Now, another thing they like in China, of course, is jade. Now, this little thing here is a puzzle, what they call a puzzle ball, and it's a lump of jade. It's been carved most beautifully, all sorts of patterns on there. And what they've done, they've carved through to the next layer, and they've made and so what you've got is a ball within a ball within a ball. And it's very clever. There's a little bit of something in the middle there. Now, this must have been very difficult to make and took a lot of skill and carving. But each one of these balls moves around inside. And so you've got 2 or 3 balls there and a little lump in the middle. So that's a jade puzzle ball, I think they call it. Now, there's another bit of jade here. And this is like a little disc. And this would have been worn by ladies or gentlemen. And I think this is jade as well. It's a darker colour jade, but it's very interesting. Now, I've got another couple of, there's a little pot here, and it shows you again the kind of uniforms or kind of clothes that these Japanese people wore. And this is a little pot, which I thought was rather cute. And so I bought it, because as I say, I like little things. And this is another little sort of deity. It's got some people on there with their long robes. And this is a perfume bottle, and it's got a little dipping stick in the top there. So you'd dip that into the perfume and spread it on yourself, and therefore you'd have your perfume. Now, as I say, there's a lot of controversy about ivory, and I've got here, I think I've shown this before on the video, and this is another piece of ivory, and I think it's quite old. Anything bought before 1947 is allowed to be bought, although they're trying to ban even that now. But this is a very beautiful carved fish, and the carp fish was very well known in Chinese culture. And this little man here, he's got his robes on and presumably his netskis and his inrows hanging from his belt, because they didn't have pockets and they didn't have trousers, I don't think. This one does seem to have trousers, so I'm not quite sure what he was all about, but that's another one. Now, here's another carved piece. And this is actually a netski. You can always tell a netski because it's got a couple of holes in the back for tying the string through to hold it onto your belt. Now, this piece, I think, and I think I've shown it before, was made out of a tooth. I don't know what kind of a tooth. It might have been a whale tooth or a shark tooth. I'm not a shark tooth, perhaps some sort of tooth. And I thought it was interesting, so I'm interested in teeth, so I bought that one. Now, some of the carvings are these little netskis, and I got another one here that probably was a netski, and this one's a little pig, and it's got a hole through it, so he obviously threaded something through, and they're quite tiny, and these were just toggles that they put on, so to stop the belt from pulling out of your strap around your waist. So those are little netskis, and there's one here that's even smaller, and it's beautiful. It's another fish. I don't know whether you can see that. Not very good at displaying these things, but that's another little carp fish, and there's a man sort of riding on it. I don't know whether he's doing that. He's like a little Eskimo type person, and he's Chinese by the look of it, and he's riding on his carp fish, and it's been beautifully carved. I mean, it's so tiny. How would anybody be able to carve that? I don't know, but it's very pretty. Now this one is a very old one, and I can tell that by the colour of it. And this is a netski again, and it's a deity. I believe he was one of the gods, and he got a very pointy head, so he was a master of very clever, because he got a big head. Excuse me. And he was a god. I can't remember what his name was now, but I think he was associated with children and teaching and that sort of thing. So that's another little netski. Now this little thing here, it's some kind of nut. I'm not quite sure what it is exactly, but it's some kind of nut, and it's been carved and the top cut open, and inside, which is strange, it's a bit of a puzzle ball, I suppose, in a way, but inside there's a little pot. Now I've tried, before this, I did this video, I tried to get this little pot out to show you, but for whatever reason, and I don't really want to break it, but it won't come out. Now I don't know why that is, it won't come out. Perhaps you have to do it in a special way, but it's, I don't know whether you can see it in there. It's not very good to see what it is, but it's a little pot. It's got a handle and a spout on it and a dish there, and somehow it's inside this little nut, and I can't shift it, so I can't show it to you. But that's a very interesting thing that I saw on a stall somewhere, and I bought in a few pounds. I don't know what it was, but that was very interesting. Now I love silver, and I bought this Chinesey type thing, and it's got Chinese writing on it, and very interesting dragons and all sorts of things. And on the back there, it's got the Chinese or Japanese calendar there of all the animals, the snake and the lion and the ram and the monkey and the pig and the mouse, rabbit, and the all sorts of Chinese things that were do with the zodiac. And so that's quite interesting. I think it is silver. I'm not sure it's silver, but I think it is. Now in here I've got some strange things. This is a bone spoon, been carved out of a piece of bone. You can always tell bone because it's got these black flecks in it. So that's a bone spoon. I'm not sure how old that is or where it came from, but I quite like that. And this one is presumably a bit of ivory again. It's got a little toggle on the back, and it unscrews, which is very clever, and it's full of needles, all different types of needles for doing sewing and stuff. So that's a little bit of sewing kit. And the last little thing in here is a bobbin, and it's made of ivory, and this is what they do for bobbin lace, and they wrap the cordon around there and they come through this hole in the bottom, and you do your lace bobbins. And this is a funny little pot, and it says on it, keep me clean and serve me well, and what I see I will not tell. So that's a little funny little thing there that I keep those little spoons in. Now another silver thing I've got here is a Scandinavian thing. And again, I think it's silver. I'm sure it's silver. And it's got something written on the bottom of there, but I can't quite read it, what it says on there. No, wait a minute, it's upside down. It looks like K-O-B-E-K, Korbik or Vorbik, I don't know, Korbik. But it's a Viking longship. And so I think this is Scandinavian. And I've got this little stone in there, which I think is some sort of special stone. I can't remember what the name of it is now. But you find these little stones, and they're supposed to be either lucky or good for their health or whatever. and it's just sitting in that little thing. Now I've got another thing here, which is it's got some letters on it. I don't know whether this is silver, I'm not quite sure, but it's a Vesta case. Now this is for keeping your matches in, and the top opens up, and you would put matches in there to keep them tidy, and then you would strike them. It's got a striker on the bottom, so you'd strike your matches and light your cigarettes with that. Now I've got another little bit of ivory here. It's a little ivory elephant, and nice little thing. I quite liked it. I like elephants, and I think this again is a little bit of ivory carving, but it's very cleverly done, and it's tiny, so everything has to be tiny for me now. I've got another one here, which again I don't know where, I think this is bone because it's got the flecks in it, so I don't think this is ivory, but it's another. It's got a nice long wick on it so that you can dip down into the perfume or whatever it was that was in this jug, and I quite like that, so I bought it. And there's another deity, and you can't really see he's got his rope there around his waist, but you can't see that he's got an inrow or anything on there. But that's how they dressed it back in the day. Now this is a big thing. This is probably a bit of ivory, an offcut or something that they've made into an egg, and I quite liked it. I thought that's unusual, so of course I bought it. Now another egg I've got here, which is made out of a nut, and I'm not quite sure what this was in aid of, because it's got holes in it, and it actually unscrews, which is quite interesting. And it unscrews, and there's holes all through, so maybe it had a bit of potpourri in it or some sort of smelling salts or something like that. But it's very pretty, and I quite like it. It's made out of a nut. I don't know what kind of nut it was, but it's got drilled holes in all the way through. Now another thing as I like, oh, there's another funny little deity there, Chinese or Japanese, and he's a very strange looking character. He's got a hole through, so maybe it was a netsuke, I don't know, but it's a bit big for a netsuke, I would have thought. But it's quite an interesting little thing, so I bought it. Now a little tools I bought here, this is rather interesting, and I bought it from a fair, but it's actually a compass, and it's got a compass needle on there, and you tip it up to get the compass, and you can tip it around and it'll go pointing north. So this is some kind of compass, and I think it opens. Let me just see. Oh yes, there we are. It opens up, and there's your compass inside, tell you which way you're going, and it'll tell the time. I think you can tell the time by reading off this this dial on the top, pointed in the right direction, and then it would tell you what time. Well, it's got a clock face dial there, and I thought that was rather cute, so I bought it, and I keep it in my treasures. Now I've got another bit of ivory here, and this is another sort of puzzle ball. This is even more intricate. It's got two elephants at the top, and it's got the little puzzle balls. It's got actually three of them, and there's I don't know how many pieces is actually inside there, but there's certainly at least two, and they rattle around inside that little thing there, and I thought that was very cute, and it's very well made, and I think that's ivory. Now I'm very fond of Buddhas, and I've got a couple of wooden Buddhas here. These came both at the same time from a thing I bought, and I bought two of them because I thought they were so good. But these are made of some sort of wood, I don't know, but they're very cleverly carved, and I even made some models of those and tried to make them. Now these are more modern netsukes. They are netsukes because they've got holes in, and this one's a mouse. He's rather big, but it's quite interesting. He's a mouse, and he's chewing on looks like a sweet corn or something he's chewing on there. I don't know, but it's interesting. And he's a little mouse. And there's another one here, which is a couple of frogs. A couple of frogs, and they seem to be dancing. I don't know if it's a frog dancing with a, I don't know if it's a turtle or some sort of thing with a shell on the back. It could be a water turtle or some sort of thing. So it could be a turtle and a frog dancing. And that's very beautifully carved. And again, it's a netsuke because it's got a hole in it, and he's dancing on a lily leaf. So I rather fancy this is some sort of turtle. It's not tortoise, I don't think. I think it's some sort of water turtle. I don't know what they call them, but that's what it is. Now this funny thing, which is interesting. It's got some numbers on the back here. Now, I'm not really sure what this is. Now, if you recognise what this is, put a little comment in the comments and tell me what you think this is. Now, it's got writing on it, which doesn't really mean anything to me, and signs. And on this side, it's got what looks like an emperor and a little bit of writing in that circle. So I don't really know what this is. It may be some sort of currency, some sort of coin. I'm not sure. But I saw it on a stall and I thought I fancied it, so I bought it. Now, another thing I like is bronzes. Oh, it isn't. Just before we go on, this is another type of, like a goid. And I think this is some kind of netski. It's been very well made. It's carved out of a bit of wood, and it looks like a goid, I think. And it's got a ring on it there, which doesn't come off. So you could tie that and turn it into a netski. So I think that's perhaps what that is. Now, getting on to these bronzes, this is a bronze of a turtle. He's obviously similar to that thing I just showed you. And he's quite an interesting little turtle. And it's very well made. It's a bronze of some sort. And I like bronzes. I mean, they're quite dear, unfortunately. But that's quite a good bronze. Now, another one I've got, which I bought, was a funny little thing. And I think this is a bronze. And it's a man with a funny hat on. I don't know where this actually came from, but it's a very strange looking thing. He's got a sword or something by the side of him. He's sitting on a throne. And I don't know what that is, but that's a funny little bronze as I bought. And this one, obviously, is Chinese or Japanese. And it looks like a bell. It's got a hole in the bottom there. It's got no dangler down on it. So I'm not quite sure what it's all about. But it's interesting. It's got a deity's face on it. So it's some kind of god or deity that's been sort of found, and they made it into that. Now this one looks Indian to me. It looks like an Indian guru, and this is quite interesting. He's holding out a palm leaf there, and he's cross-legged on the floor. So I think this may be an Indian deity or a Buddha of some sort. I don't quite know, but it looks Indian to me. And again, it's probably brass, this one. It's too shiny for to be bronze. So I think this is made of brass, and I quite like that. Now, I like things that are strange. No, excuse me. Got a little drip on my nose there. This is rather interesting, and I'm not sure whether it's silver. It may be so. I think it is hallmarked. It's got silver on it, and it's certainly silvery inside. Now, this is like a little walnut, and it opens up, and you can put things inside there, I suppose, and it clicks together. So it's a little hinged walnut case. And I rather like that. And again, I bought it because I fancy these things and I go for them. And that's that. Now this little creature, I'm not even sure what it is. It looks a bit like a rabbit. I'm not sure whether it's a rabbit. But the curious thing about this is what it's made out of. I'm not sure what it is, but it looks to me like some sort of fossil. It looks like, or coral. I'm not quite sure. It looks like coral. And it's got a sort of a body to it, and it's stripy. So I think this might be carved from a bit of coral of some sort. And it's carved into a little funny little creature. It looks like a rabbit or a mouse. I'm not quite sure. It's got lovely eyes, lovely red eyes there. So I'm not quite sure what that's exactly made out of, but it looked very interesting and I was attracted to it. So I bought it. Now, I love, this is another interesting thing. This is what they call fruit ivory. And I think I've shown this once before, and I bought this in a fair to show what fruit ivory is like. You don't have to buy ivory when you've got these nuts. And this is a nut. You can tell it's a nut because of the striations on it. And it's quite old, judging by the, it's a sailor's carving. Looks like a sailor. And that would have been carved by somebody on a ship, I would think. And it's quite interesting. And it's carved from a nut. And they call that fruit ivory. And that's quite interesting. And another little thing I got here, which probably is a bit of ivory, or no, I think it's a bone. I'm not sure. I'm looking at it more closely now. And I love hares, as you know. And this is a hare. And I like that little hare. He's very attractive and I like him a lot. Now, I like boxes. And I've got quite a few boxes here. And these, this one is probably, I don't know whether it's made of bone or ivory, but it's very well made. And it's been fastened together, and I think, if I remember rightly, it only goes on one way round. So that's been made, precision made, to go one way, and I keep little bits and pieces inside that little box. And I like these little boxes. They've got a perforated lid on it, and that's very pretty. And I've got another one here with a couple of birds on, and this is made in a similar way. I don't know whether it's bone or ivory. It may have an ivory top. The actual skin on the top might be ivory because that looks a bit cleaner than the sides. So it may have been made out of both bone and ivory. So that's another little box. And I'm up to 25 minutes now, so I've got to scoot along. Now another one, little box here, a little wooden box, which is interesting. It's got a bit of silver on the top there, and it's got a man ploughing with cattle. Now that's obviously quite old because they didn't plough with cattle for very long, very recently, I mean. And so it's quite old. Now this is actually a snuff box, and it opens up and people would pinch a snuff out of there. So that's very interesting, and it's quite old, I would imagine. And so I liked it, and so I bought it. And that's a little snuff box. Now I've got another little funny box here. It's a round box. I don't quite know what this is for. And there's a couple of little bits of pottery in there I've saved, I don't know why. But it's got a notch in it, in the side, so that when you put it, I think this is made of paper mache. It feels like very light. And I think this is a little paper mache box. But it's very pretty. And so I liked it, and I keep it amongst my treasures. Now, I've got another box here, which is a bit strange. Now this one is like a little suitcase, which is very odd, and you can't open it, unfortunately. It's got a hole in the bottom, and I think maybe you put a cork in there, and so it may well have held something, and it says German on it, Germany. So it's some sort of German trinket box of some sort, but I like that little suitcase, and I thought it looked pretty, so it adds to my collection. Now this little box is rather cute. I don't know, again I think it's made of brass. It isn't anything precious, but it's got a rather nice stone on the top. It's got an amethyst stone on the top of there. I don't know whether you can see that, the amethyst colour shining through. As I say, I was hoping the light would be a bit better in here, and it's not terribly good, but I'm hoping it's good enough. And I like these little boxes. Now these two boxes here are silver, and I like it, as I say, these are little pill boxes. You'd have your little pills in there for whatever ailments you've got, and you'd keep them in there, and it's a nice little pill box. And I've got another one, a slightly different shape, and there's something silver inside there, a little shamrock or something inside there, which is also silver, I believe. And that's another little well-decorated little silver pill box. Now this little box is rather interesting. I'm not quite sure what it's all about. I don't think it's made of anything precious. I mean, it doesn't look like, I mean, it may be copper. I think it might be copper, actually, this one. But it's got a lot of design on it and a lot of different symbols on either side. It's got birds and flowers and fish and all sorts of things, birds and fowl. And it's a nice little box. And I was attracted to that. It doesn't show it up terribly well in my camera, unfortunately. As I say, the light is not very good in here. I thought it was going to be. Because today I'm not filming in my normal location, which is in my little office back there. I'm in our little dining room that we had built. And I thought that would be better. But in fact, it's a little bit dark in here. Now this one is interesting because this little box has been made out of a couple of pennies. In this box, it's got a couple of pennies, got a king on there. I think Edward, I think it is. No, it's King George, George the VI. Now that's interesting, and I bought this simply because, not only because I thought it was interesting, it's made out of a couple of pennies, but the date on it. Now if you look on there, you can see the date maybe, and it's 1946. Now that was the date I was born. I was born in 1946. So this little thing is 72 years old. And I thought, I saw that and I thought 1946, I've got to have that in my collection because it's mine. Now, I showed you before that I was interested in writing things, and I've got a couple of strange writing things here. Now this one possibly is Chinese or Japanese, I'm not sure, but it's rather strange. It's got this long barrel-y bit, and it's got this little pot on the side. It looks like a pipe, and it's rather interesting because I was rather lucky to get this because they're usually quite dear to buy, these are. but I managed to find a chap on a day when he wasn't having a good day. He was desperate to sell it, so we reduced it down. Now what happens, this end opens, and you would put your writing equipment, your inks and your quills and your pens inside there, and you close that little door up. And then on the side here, you've got another little inkwell, which I don't know whether you can see. There's the inkwell. Now it doesn't seal terribly well, but I believe that what they did, they put a little bit of sponge in there along with the ink so that it wouldn't spill out. So it wasn't sloshing about all over the place. And therefore the ink, you'd dip into the sponge and pick up a little bit of ink for doing the writing. So I think that might be Chinese or some such thing as that. It's not a terribly good one. And it's made of brass, I would think. It looks like brass to me. But that's quite interesting. Now another little inkwell, because I love inkwells, especially travelling inkwells. This is another one. And this one's covered in leather. And what it's got a little button on the side here. And if you press that button, if I can do it. Oh dear. Is it upside down? There it is, upside down. You open this little button out, and that comes up, and you push that back, and the lid comes up again. And inside there's a little glass inkwell. Now this probably would have had liquid ink in it, and so it's a travelling inkwell, and because it's got a rubber seal inside there that shuts down and blocks off the ink, it probably wouldn't spill. And then of course you've got the lid that comes over and clicks it shut. So that's quite cute. And I love these little travelling inkwells. Now I've got another inkwell here, and this is very strange. I'm not sure what it's made out of. It seems very heavy, and I don't think it's made of lead. It may be made of pewter. I'm not quite sure, but it's a little devil. Now I've seen these in different places on the television and whatnot, and they're quite valuable in their sense, especially if they're made of bronze or something. And I'm not quite sure what they're all about, but you've got a devil there with his spiky long tail sticking out the back there. You can see his tail sticking out the back. And he's quite interesting. He's got an anvil on there. I don't know what that's in aid of. But when you open it up inside, again, you've got a little ink pot. A little ceramic ink pot, and it's obviously empty now, but that would fit inside there. It doesn't seal up terribly well. So it's a desk, a little ornament, which is a little inkwell, which I rather like. And these devil ones are very attractive. And so I got a sort of go all to that. Now, another thing I got is this lamp. Now, I don't think this is an authentic lamp. I think this is like a touristy thing that's been made. I don't believe it's a really ancient one, but it's certainly made in the same way that the ancient ones would be. And what you do, you put a bit of oil in there and some sort of animal fat or something in there. And this little wick at the front here would suck it up, and then you'd set fire to it. And that would be the only sort of lighting that you would have in the early days of lighting in houses, and it's abroad somewhere, I suppose. And that's a little lamp. Now, another thing I've got here, I remember I was going to tell you about this. Now, I was hoping I'd remember the name of this type of pottery, but I can't remember for the life of me now what it is. But it's very beautifully made, and it's got a ceramic inside, rather blue and rather lovely, and a little metal rim round it. Now, I can't remember what this is called, which is a pity. I was hoping I would be able to remember by the time I got round to it. But this little pot has been all carved out, and they call this something, but I'm just blowed if I can think what it is. But if you know, well, obviously you'll know what it is. But that's a nice, interesting little pot that I found. And I quite like this idea of this carved material that they carve. I don't think it's coral or anything like that. It's some sort of ceramic material, but they carve it and make it into pretty designs. Now, the last thing I've got here, because this has gone on it's gone on 30 minutes now, 34 minutes, is this one. Now, this is a very odd looking thing. And it's some kind of pipe. Now, it's got little nuts on here, and each one's been carved quite cleverly. This one's just decorative, but these four up here have got faces on, and they're rather interesting. Obviously, it's got a metal spout there, and it's not very big, so whatever you're smoking in this pipe would only be a tiny bit. And I rather fancy it's an opium pipe. I mean, I don't know, but it might be. But it looks to me like this is a sort of thing that these Chinamen would sit in the smoke and smoke opium in an opium den, and they would puff away on their opium pipes. So that's what that is. Now I've come to the end of my thing of this particular video, and it's gone on for 35 minutes, which is quite a long time really. So I'll break off now, but if you see anything on here that is interesting and give me some more information about it, put a little comment in the comments. And if you like this video, subscribe to my channel, and I'll show you some other interesting things. I've got lots of interesting things in there, which I might do. If this is interesting, then I'll do another video showing all sorts of other things that my wife's collected. She's very fond of crystals and things. So I might do a little video on that, I don't know. But this is all I'm going to do for today. So if you like this video, put a like up. And until I see you again, it's Grandad as usual, signing off in the usual way and saying bye-bye now. Bye-bye. Hope you enjoyed it.